Good day and welcome back to In Contact. I am your host, Kat Witherspoon. Did you know that the Atlanta economy is the 10th largest in the country and the 18th largest in the world? Major national and international companies are headquartered in Metro Atlanta, including 7 Fortune 100 companies to the likes of Coca-Cola, Home Depot, and Delta Airlines. This city, where most of us call home, is in the top 10 most popular places for film and TV shows in the world, and we boast the busiest airport in the world as well. While these are the things that make us proud to be called Atlantans, there is a dark underlying industry that thrives in the shadow of Atlanta's booming economy: human trafficking. As of June 2017, the National Human Trafficking Hotline Resource Center reported there were more than 36,000 human trafficking cases reported since December 2007, and more than 162,000 phone calls, online tips, or emails received reported since December 2007 as well. This ranks Atlanta among the top U.S. cities for human trafficking. In this episode of In Contact, we are highlighting human trafficking in Atlanta. We talk with advocates who have dedicated their lives to not only rescuing victims, but also preventing more victims. So gather your family and your friends to be informed as we tackle the complexities of this issue. We'll be right back.
Be informed. You gotta know what's going on in our community. So together we can make a change. You and me. Yeah. Be in contact.
Thank you to our sponsors, Georgia Power. Now, before we get started, I'd like to introduce our in-studio guests that we have with us today, and we have here.
My name is Nicola Mitchell. I'm an author, blogger, and also I'm the founder of Girls Who Brunch Tour.
And you?
My name is Casey Benton. I'm a detective with the DeKalb County Police Department. I work in the Internet Crimes Against Children Unit.
Thank you both for being here. I'm not a big fan of the topic, but it's something that we have to discuss, and you two are very, I guess you're experts in this. So let's start with what your organization does as it relates to sex trafficking.
Girls Who Brunch Tour, we're a traveling 21-city girls empowerment conference. We sponsor girls from low-income, at-risk girls, such as victims of the sex trade, girls in foster care, girls who are homeless, and we just try to teach them with STEM training and things like that.
And we can assume what you do based on your title, but go a little bit more in depth for us so we'll know what you do specifically as it pertains to sex trafficking.
Okay. So the Internet Crimes Against Children Unit, we investigate all different types of child exploitation cases. It ranges from child pornography all the way to domestic minor sex trafficking.
All right. Now, how long have you been working as a detective?
I've been policing for about 13 years and a detective for about 3.
Okay, so my first question, research shows that 90% of victims are arrested for selling sex, whereas 10% who are buyers get arrested. Why is it that more victims are taken into custody rather than sellers? And maybe I can direct that question to you.
So, I can't speak for other agencies, but in DeKalb County, when we encounter a child victim who's a victim of domestic minor sex trafficking, it's our practice that we actually don't make those arrests. Now, I know it does happen a lot of times in other areas, and I think that's because of a lack of education for the officers and for the other people involved. They see it simply as prostitution and not as the person being a real victim of a crime.
And I see you nodding your head. Why is that?
I agree, because I grew up in Las Vegas, and sex trafficking was really big. And in Vegas, you go to jail for solicitation over prostitution, but they will take the girls first. The girls are on the track walking.
Now, help us understand the difference between sex trafficking and prostitution.
So, sex trafficking in Georgia, it's actually titled Trafficking of Persons for Sexual Servitude. And in Georgia, it's defined as someone through coercion or deception being forced basically into committing sexual acts in exchange for something of value. So the difference between trafficking and prostitution would be that I guess some might make the argument that of prostitution there's no force, there's no coercion or deception, Whereas trafficking, there, at least with adults, there is coercion or deception.
And in either of your experiences, have you seen more of the coercion in the cases that you've seen in the sex trafficking world instead of the prostitution world?
Yeah, I think it's about the same with both, because a lot of times the girls are under the impression that they're going in for something else, you know, and sometimes they think that's their boyfriend, and they put them out there to work, or they make them feel like they owe them something. They'll help them out of really bad situations, and now you owe me, you have to fix this. So I kind of think it's the same to me.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And in the unit that I'm a part of, we deal primarily with minor sex trafficking. So a big difference between that and adult sex trafficking is that for minors, we don't have to show deception or coercion. If there's a minor victim, a child victim, who is performing these acts in exchange for something of value, that person is by definition a victim of sex trafficking.
I'm almost afraid to ask, but what is the youngest victim you've ever?
The youngest, I believe the youngest I've encountered has been 13. And that's about the average age, 12 to 14 years old when they come into the
Why is that?
environment.
Why that age group, and how is that becoming the norm in this world?
You know, I wish I knew the answer to that question. A lot of our victims are runaways, so I believe it has something to do with that. When they're becoming a teenager and that kind of thing, most of them have a history of abuse in the past, so they get to that age and they run away. And I think studies show between 48 and 72 hours of running away, somebody's already contacted them about being involved in the sex trade.
Yes, your body language changed a little bit there.
I've seen as young as 10 years old, and she was sold. So it's kind of,
When you say sold,
her mother sold her. So she sold her for drugs, and she was trafficked. And when we found her, she was 14. So yeah, I've seen as young as 10. And it's kind of hard to break them, because when they're brainwashed and they're doing it for so long, they kind of think this is all they have.
And why Atlanta? I mean, we may not be number one, but it's still bad that we're ranked in the top 10 for girls as young as 10, 13, 14 years old that are being sex trafficked. Like, what is it about Atlanta?
You know, Atlanta's a hub for a lot of things. It ranks high on the list for narcotics trafficking and drug use. It ranks high on a lot of things. And again, I wish I could tell you the answer to that. I think it probably has something to do with the large population in Atlanta. Just how much commerce is in Atlanta and travels through Atlanta. I think all of those things kind of play into to Atlanta being always ranked high on the list.
So how can I determine someone, like how can you spot a human trafficker or someone who's being trafficked at 10 or underage?
A lot of times they have the girls just walking out on the street. And like, I went to a church off of Old National, and we were over there, and they were showing us I spoke at the school, I can't think of the school, but I spoke there, and they said that a lot of the girls, the guys get them, and you'll see them on the street. So when we were driving out, you actually seen the girls walking up and down the street, and there's like a McDonald's and things that's over there. You think they're just going to school, getting out of school, whatever, but they're out there selling themselves.
So they still carry on their normal activities that a 10-year-old, 13-year-old would do. So they still go to school and so forth, but then...
A lot of times, no, in my case.
I believe I've read a study that said that something close to 90% of children that were victims of sex trafficking were currently enrolled in school while they were a victim. That doesn't mean they were necessarily attending regularly, but they were currently enrolled. So, and talking about spotting a victim, keeping your eye out while you're around town, that kind of thing, but also on social media.
Yeah.
A large portion of these victims are sold or report that they have been sold via the internet. Using apps that we use every day, Instagram and different social media applications.
So how do you spot that on social media? Is there like a particular hashtag, or is there like certain like lingo, or how will we know?
I think it's hard to know. I would say just keep your eye out for things that don't really look right. There's no reason for a 13-year-old to be posting pictures on Instagram wearing her underwear. So when you see things like that, that should kind of raise your attention, and if you can contact the authorities and have them at least notify them of it, then that'd be a huge benefit.
So I want to go back to what you said when they run away. Typically they run away either from abuse or whatever the case may be, and within about 72 hours they've been contacted. Where are they going to be contacted?
They can contact them on their Facebook page. A lot of times the guys are Instagram, they're watching their posts, and they're watching these girls. You can tell when somebody is in need, when somebody needs attention. So now they're befriending you. They're making you feel like they're safe. Oh, you need something, you need some shoes, you need what you left, and that's how they're contacting them. It's really easy.
And is that in this case?
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it, but it also, talking about being on the streets again, if a trafficker, a predator sees a child walking down the street at, late at night carrying a trash bag with their belongings in it, that's a target for them.
So what about the children? Because I know you mentioned that you seek to empower young girls who have been in the foster care system. I can only imagine how that system may fail foster girls. Tell me what the percentage is of those girls who are sex trafficked.
I can't give you an exact percentage, but it's a high number of the girls I deal with nationwide. So like there's an organization that we deal with in Houston that they're only kept for 30 days. So after 30 days, if the state doesn't pick it up, what are they going to do? They're going to go back on the street. And at 12, 13, 14, what life skills do you really have? And they just look like normal girls, and it's crazy, but I see that every city we go to. And about 5 of them have said if they're in foster care, they've told us that they've addicted to drugs, they've sold themselves, they've been raped, and then we also tailor to girls who are in programs that are trying to save girls from sex trafficking.
Wow. And I saw you nodding your head as well. I don't know if you're nodding in shock as I am, but one last thing before we go off into a break. For the foster children, is this the same as for foster girls as boys as well, or is just mainly?
I think the boys are very underreported. Typically the stereotype is that victims of sex trafficking are females. And I believe we think that just because the boys are underreported. They're not as willing, or we don't look for boys that are victims of sex trafficking as much as we do girls.
Yes. I want to present a question that I don't want you to answer. It's considering that boys are underreported, but then there is this high number of girls, and it seems that it is a case of survival, and that they're in this life because of, I guess we could say, survival sex. We'll touch on that when we get back. We'll be right back.
Georgia Power is always working to make the connection with our customers even stronger. With innovative solutions to make your life easier, thousands of places to pay your bill. Find rate plans that fit your lifestyle. Get questions answered in person or on social media. Even purchase energy-efficient products online. Now more than ever, there are so many new ways to connect to Georgia Power. Learn more at georgiapower.com.